And just because you disagree with somebody does not give you the right to demonize them. Now, when I speak of the civil public square, I'm not talking about civil religion, where everybody compromises their beliefs and we dumb it down so it really doesn't believe in anything. Differences make a difference. Differences do matter. And the right to believe anything does not mean everything is right. But you can, as I said, disagree without being disagreeable. And we show grace to each other when we make misstatements. Now, in order to restore civility to our civilization, and I call on American Christians, American Muslims, American Jews, and everybody else to be a part of this, the problem is that a civil vision is not in the best interest of either political party or any of the media. The fastest way to raise money is to demonize an enemy and make people afraid or hate them. And the fastest way to raise ratings on television is to create a conflict. Civility, politeness, isn't a very interesting story. Now, to restore civility, it means that as we try to walk down this pathway together, in the middle, not on extremes. You know what I've discovered is when you walk down the middle of the road, you get hit coming and going. You get hit on both sides if you're trying to go down the middle. Actually, it's easier to be an extremist of any kind because then you only have one group of people mad at you. But if you actually tried to build relationships, like invite an evangelical pastor to your gathering, you'll get criticized for it. So will I. But that's not what matters. Now, the problem is, to restore civility to civilization, you're going to have to make, and I'm going to have to make, some very courageous decisions. And one of those decisions is to challenge conventional wisdom. Conventional wisdom now today, political correctness says, if you disagree with an idea, then you are intolerant, you hate that person, or you are afraid of them. No, you can disagree with somebody without hating them. You can disagree with somebody without being afraid of them. My wife disagrees with me all the time, and she still loves me. Actually, she respects me, but we disagree all the time. Now, there's a third thing that we need to do together, and I think we could do these hand in hand. And that is promoting peace, promoting freedom, and protecting freedom, particularly the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion. Today, as we celebrate Independence Day on the 4th of July, we need to remember, frankly, that freedom never, ever lasts unless we intentionally cultivate it. History has proven over and over again that freedom is eventually lost to either license or political correctness or the fear of security. And so we have to work at protecting the freedoms. I had ancestors, Baptists, who died in the Revolutionary War fighting for my freedom of speech and my freedom of religion. And yet today, over 200 years later, those freedoms are still under attack by people who don't want you to talk about the things you want to talk about or the things that I want to talk about or anybody else, and they want us to just talk about what they want us to talk about. So we need to work together in promoting religious freedom and freedom of speech wherever. And part of that, let me just say this to those of you who have been in America for many generations now. Part of your responsibility is helping the newcomers learn what it means to be American. The old-timers help the newcomers in every generation. America is a nation not built on a race, not built on a creed, but built on an idea. Liberty and justice for all, and freedom for all. It's very easy to become an American, but it's much more difficult to explain the responsibilities of being an American. And we need citizen education. Finally, I believe that there's some problems in this world that are never going to be solved by the governments of all the world. I call these problems the 5 global giants. These are the problems that affect billions of people, not just millions of people. There are a lot of problems that affect millions. But as I've traveled around the world and I've trained leaders in 169 countries, I have seen these same 5 problems over and over. I see them in America and I see them in every other country. The 5 global giants. These problems are so big, the United States has failed to solve them, the United Nations has failed to solve them, and so has everybody else. What are they? Number 1 is the problem of conflict. War, confrontation, hostilities, terrorism, refugee camps, all of the things that cause hostility between generations, hostility between races, hostility between nations, hostility between ethnic groups and economic groups. And it's just an evidence of our unwillingness to reconcile with God and to reconcile with each other. The second big problem that is all around the world is corruption. And we see corruption in governments, and we see it in business, we see it in academics, we see it in healthcare, we can see it in religion. It's actually everywhere. And it keeps people stuck in poverty, and it keeps people being abused and robbed of their dignity. The third big problem on the planet is poverty. Half of the world lives on less than $2 a day. 1 billion people live on less than $1 a day. We're working in countries and humanitarian efforts like in Rwanda, where the average income is 68 cents a day. Now in Rwanda, they grow coffee, but a farmer will work all day and that night could not afford a cup of Starbucks coffee for the entire day wages. Something's wrong with that. Poverty. The fourth big problem is disease. This year, 500 million people around the world will get malaria. That's a problem we solved 100 years ago in Teddy Roosevelt's administration. Why do people still get malaria today? Because we don't have the leaders who will say, enough's enough, we're going to stop this, we're going to wipe it out right now. The number 1 killer of children in the world is poor water. It's diarrhea. It's waterborne eye diseases, things that we know how to get rid of, how to prevent or how to cure from the 19th and 20th century into the 21st century. And the fifth biggest problem is illiteracy. Half of the world functionally can't read or write. 5 years ago, I began working with our network of congregations around the world in what we called the Peace Plan. Dr. Matson mentioned it. Promote reconciliation, equip servant leaders, assist the poor, care for the sick, and educate the next generation. In the last 5 years, we've had over 8,000 members of my congregation go overseas, somewhere around the world in nearly 100 countries, to do this peace plan. And I want to close with this story to show you how it is possible for Muslims and Christians to work together for the greater good and the common good around us, without compromising my convictions or your convictions.